Okay.
Malicious
So
that we end up with.
I think it's recording now. It's the first
Good.
time.
Yeah, very good.
Good to
Hi,
see you.
Thomas. How are
Michael.
you? Yeah,
Good,
good to see
good,
you.
good. Yes. Thank you for having me
Yeah,
again and for talking to me.
yeah. Thomas, very famous filmmaker, producer, over here in Singapore. Came back, as he'll tell us, to visit with his parents. I'm Michael Earley. I'm Dean of Performing Arts at LaSalle College of the Arts. And besides just seeing Thomas finally after this lockdown started and after a number of months, it's a fantastic opportunity to talk to someone like him who's just come back from Los Angeles to kind of understand what he sees happening in the industry since the beginning of the year, how things have gone quickly, where things are at the moment, and what he kind of thinks things might be like in the future. So, Thomas, you're back, obviously, to visit your parents, obviously, which has been very difficult for you to be away, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I came back. I think this is day 6. I'm under quarantine right now in a hotel, in the Shangri-La Hotel at Sentosa. The mandatory quarantine that the government needs every returning Singaporean to do. And so this is the hotel room, and it's okay. I mean, like, it's a great hotel. I'm lucky enough to have a balcony that I can step out to for fresh air every day. So that helps a lot. And they treat everybody very nice here. I'm just not supposed to leave the room at all, and nobody's supposed to come close to me, because that's the meaning of quarantine. So they bring me my meals, basic but decent to great meals every day. They leave it at the small table that they put outside of my door. And I made this sudden trip because my father's sick, so unfortunately, and I have to come back to give him the love and support that he needs. So, but I mean, unfortunately, I can only see him 8 days later. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 days.
You must be in touch all the time by phone or
Yeah, by
FaceTime?
video chat. So I
Yeah,
talk to him
okay.
every day.
Yeah.
He's very chatty, and he's still very happy. He's still very cheerful and chatty. So that
Okay.
all that is really good. I mean, he has cancer, but it is one of the most treatable cancers. So we are quite hopeful. We are very hopeful that he will recover. And he doesn't feel any pain or anything, but he has to go through the radiotherapy and chemotherapy in time to come. And I'm here to give him the support. Yeah.
So COVID hasn't touched your family at all, or?
No. Yeah. Fortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. The industry, the creative industries in the States, which has the highest number of deaths, obviously, is taking its toll across all the arts. I can every day there seems to be new names mentioned, so which is incredibly tragic. And how was the trip coming back? Was it getting flights? Was it okay? Was it easy? Was it crazy?
It was easy enough. I got mine. I got a one-way ticket, and it was a fair price. It was 500 something US dollars for Singapore Airlines. I think that's a really good price. And I departed 3 days after I got the ticket. So normally I think it would be a lot more expensive than that. The plane was rather empty. There were only maybe less than 10 passengers in the entire plane.
Wow.
I actually have videos of it. I make a video a day here in the room, because when I was coming back, I was really trying to find information about what would happen upon landing, because I want to see my father as quickly as I can. And also I needed to know what the rules are. And there were rumors saying that you have to pay for the hotel yourself and all that. And that confused me a lot. So when I started this journey back, I decided, because I'm a filmmaker, right? I decided that I'll just use my iPhone and I'll just capture some footage and make small videos, like make a 1-minute video a day, just to, like, help people who were in my shoes back then, help them understand what's going on, like to assure them that everything's going to be fine when they come back. So the plane was less than 10 people. And when I got to the Singapore airport, the Changi airport, everything went exactly as what the guy who works at the Singapore consulate in California told me. So when I landed, you had to fill in electronically, you have to fill in a form, a health declaration form. And then after that, you pick up your luggage, your suitcases, and you walk out of that glass door that brings you back to the normal side of life. And you make a right, walk to the bus bay, and they're there waiting for you at the bus bay. They put you on a bus and they take you straight to the hotel. and there's
Wow.
you cannot choose your hotel. So I mean, it's very, very organized. Everything is really planned out. They know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No.
No, I was going to say the Shangri-La is one of the top hotels. It's pretty posh.
Yes, it is. I lucked out. I got lucky. I got lucky. Yeah. So
They're
everything's
treating you like a VIP.
yes. Like it's a bit feeling very confined here. I do not. I mean, I I started to look at it in different ways. That I started to look at it as almost like a retreat for me to write my script, because I am writing a script right now, and now it gives me all the time in the world to write, to do the writing that I need to do. And when I was in LA, I tend to sleep really late, so I didn't have a jet lag problem when I got back here. So all that is good, and yeah.
It's very interesting, Thomas. Creatives that I talk to and hear about, read about, see on Zoom,
Hmm.
all seem to be having the same problem, which is doing something, doing anything. You know what I mean? They know they've got this time,
Yeah.
and yet, whether it's because of the time and the crisis is against us all, nobody seems to be actually getting on with their work in quite that way. Very interesting, isn't it? You think novelists would find it a great time to write novels,
Yeah.
screenwriters a great time to write screenplays, producers a great time to do business and kind of catch up on things. But it's really weird. Tell me about your business. So how have things affected you? How have things hit you? Because you maybe you could just tell us a bit, because you sold a project at Sundance
Yeah.
very, very late in the year, as the year was closing last year, which was tremendous euphoria, because I remember reading a lot about it, you sending around a lot of things about it. Tell us about that project and where that stands and how that came about.
So I am the head of Sign Entertainment Los Angeles, and Sign Entertainment Culture is a Hong Kong company, and I head the Los Angeles office, and we partner with our permanent American partners. Their name is Limelight. We help finance a lot of their movies, and Palm Springs is the first of maybe 4 movies that we financed with them last year, and all these movies finished shooting last year. So we were lucky in that sense that they were ready to go this year, because had they all been shooting this year, then we would have been in trouble. So Palm Springs got into competition at Sundance, the biggest film festival in America, and it sold for the record sale there. So we're all extremely happy about that, and excited. And then a second film that we did with them called The Starling just sold to Netflix about now maybe 2 months ago, for 20 million, which is a huge deal. And then our third film that we did with them called Cowboys premiered at Tribeca online. Tribeca is a film festival in New York, which is I believe Tribeca is considered one of the top 3 film festivals in the United States. It moved online, unfortunately, because of COVID, and our film won the Best Actor and the Best Script. So we got off to a great start this year with Limelight, our partner, on their films. And then on my side, I have 18 films on my slate, 18 projects, 3 of them series, the other 15 are feature film projects, and all of them are in development, which means that the writers are writing the scripts. And in that sense, like, we were not that affected because the writers continue to write, and they are actually able to turn in their scripts ahead of schedule, because I guess they're professionals, so they found a way to discipline themselves and get the work out, despite being overwhelmed by the pandemic, at least at the beginning. So that went quite well, and I was still able to negotiate over phone and over Zoom, or over sometimes Skype, with other producers and other companies for different deals for our different projects. So in short, work-wise, we were not affected that much as many others were, especially those who were in production. They had to shut down their productions, and there are a lot of freelancers in the film industry, and they're all out of job for the past 2 months, and they do not know when they will get back to working. So that's not good for them. And then this thing happened to my family, and I'm back in Singapore, but I still continue to do my work, because
Yeah, sure.
I can still do them online.
So what would be the next stages for those projects? I mean, obviously, no one knows when this will end. No one knows when cinemas will reopen or film festivals will start. I mean, everything's been pushed back, I guess, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
cinema.
for you,
Yeah.
on any of those projects, because that would have all happened, what, around January time when the positives were all happening, and then the negatives started, the stoppages started happening towards the end of February, would you say? February, March?
So in LA, the lockdown in California started on March the 20th, but about 2 weeks before then, people started to stop their in-person meetings, and production started to shut down, and everybody was sent home. At the beginning, they thought it was going to be just 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks very quickly became a month, and then 2 months, and then now it's been coming to 2.5, 3 months. Many productions they're still not very sure when they will start up again. So I'm not sure what their plan is, but for me, we were planning to go into production for 2 films at the end of this year, and one of those is a film that I would direct, and I'm actually writing it right now. So those plans could still go as scheduled if we are lucky, but now I'm looking at probably shifting the productions to the first quarter of next year to be a little bit more realistic. Yeah, and then company-wise, like, we're taking a big hit with the cinemas being closed for the past 2 or 3 months. But in Hong Kong, they are slowly starting to reopen. Hopefully, they don't have to close down again. I mean, hopefully they don't have to close again. And in Hong Kong, our head office, a major part of our business is concerts. So that part really took a hit because there's no concerts right now. Yeah. So
and with social distancing be the norm for quite some time, to cut down on the number of places and the distance, audience members will have to either stand or sit from each other. I mean, I've seen pictures online of theaters, very famous theaters like the Berliner Ensemble in Berlin, have taken out all these seats, and it looks absolutely amazing with like one seat here and two seats here, and it's extraordinary what's going to happen. The economy of running a theater or a cinema simply can't work.
No, yeah. Well, I think like COVID will only fully go away if there's a vaccine, maybe next year. And then slowly life would go back to the so to speak, normal, maybe a new normal. And when that happens, I believe, well, I'm an optimistic guy, and I believe that more people will actually be going to the cinemas because they miss it so much. I would.
That's very interesting. Yeah,
I would go several times a week.
I think it's very interesting, as I think if you're like me, I mean, I'm kind of getting sick of watching stuff online. It's too confining. You know what I mean? Even films. And I've got a big screen TV, but you get a bit sick of it.
In terms of my projects, and also in terms of the projects that come to find me for investment, that they are also being held back a lot. Like, we are holding back, like, investing in the so-called outside projects. That's projects outside of my slate because of the current situation. And I think nobody in at least China or Hong Kong is making big investments in movies right now because they don't know the future of movies, whether or not it will still be theatrical, whether or not it will all be streaming in the future. Like, we don't really know now. And the situation is changing all the time. Like, think about it, like 2 months ago when sort of COVID first started, like, at least in America, the predictions that they were making at that time all didn't hold up. Like, they predicted that it would be over in 2 weeks, and there's no need for masks. Stuff like that have all changed today. And at the time, everyone was saying, like, if you're young, you're safe. And I think they sort of stopped saying that. Although younger people are still relatively safer, but then I think more and more younger people are also dying. So they kind of stopped saying that too.
Or being transmitters.
Right. Yeah. So I think there's still some changes to come. And even today, I still think we do not really know I think we definitely do not know everything about the virus yet, and we do not know enough about the virus to know what the future looks like.
Yeah, sure.
Hmm.
Listen, as you know, I'm over at LaSalle College of the Arts here in Singapore.
Yeah.
We're training young performing artists, young filmmakers, animation makers, visual artists. I mean, what do you? It's. I know it's, even though it's too early to say decisively, but what's your feeling about the futures and careers? How do you think this is going to rocket, or what do you think might be the areas that will have new growth out of this?
In terms of for all these different positions,
Well, just your area, the film in particular. How do you see that all working out? Film and animation.
I think that I hope and I believe that when productions are allowed to start again, there will be a huge influx of hopefully great content that writers are hopefully writing right now, because I know everyone is trying to be productive, and I feel like, just to sidetrack a bit, the the key to being productive at home, so to speak, is discipline. Like, you have to set aside, like, I try to write my script, and even if you have all the time in the world, you will not write like a word on the paper if you have no discipline. So I set aside a couple of hours a day, and to me, one of the biggest things is I turn off the internet, and that is when I can really start writing. Because as long as the internet is on, then I cannot start. I just get distracted all the time, and as we all do. So I believe that the writers who are writing now, they probably have more space in their heads to write something maybe more meaningful, because they have had all this time, and in terms of space, in terms of the time that they have to maybe be more centered in maybe the message or the story that they really want to tell. And they would have the time, hopefully, to revisit some of the ideas that they sort of abandoned because they got too busy, and which were maybe stories that they really wanted to tell, that was about their life, that was about them. And I believe these writers are writing these stories. And hopefully when we all emerge from the pandemic, these stories will be more organic, maybe uplifting and inspiring as well. That's the hope that I have. And productions will all start. It depends on how the world opens up again as well. Like, if it's gradual, then maybe different kinds of stories, different kinds of films will start filming at different stages of the reopening up of the world. And there will be a huge desire for content as well. And I think that there will also be, I think streaming will become more dominant than before. So I imagine that because Palm Springs, our film, set the record at Sundance this year, which is in January, which was, now it's May, so it's about 4 months ago. And if you're lucky enough to have Sundance 2021 take place as it would, I believe a new record will be set by a streaming giant who would come and buy up a film for a new record price.
And who are those streaming giants at the moment? Are you talking about Netflix and others as well?
Yeah, Netflix is definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And I would say Netflix, Amazon Prime, Amazon Video, and Hulu are really strong. And Disney Plus and Apple TV is coming up really strong too.
Yes, Apple TV really just launched. Seems to me they just launched pretty recently at the beginning of the year or so, and they've have had a couple of interesting things, but it's but not yet enough content to really tell.
Yeah.
Right
now, I think Netflix is still probably the leader here because it's worldwide. Like Hulu, like Palm Springs is released on Hulu, and from what I hear, like Hulu isn't that available in Asia, so they have to go through a third party or something. So that sort of weakens the brand maybe a little bit.
Yeah. But on that side of the industry, as it were, there'll be probably lots of activity, and even somebody, a young creative might actually think of looking for jobs in that area, really. And
in terms of writing.
well, and just in terms of work, even just somebody new into the industry who might want to have gone into, say, filmmaking might have to sort of think laterally about other types of jobs in the industry.
Yeah, probably. Yep, I think so.
Yeah. But one of the things that was interesting about what you were saying about the writing of scripts now, another thing the impression I'm getting from a lot of creatives around the world is that creativity will have a kind of renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
Not creativity in the service of commerce or something commercial or something you sell or
Mm-hmm.
something written to a formula, but as you just said, something you want to write.
Yes.
I'm wondering if that's having any kind of an effect on your own screenwriting at the moment that you're doing in that room.
Yeah, I think so. So the first thing I do is I set aside, like I said, I set aside a couple of hours just to write, and I turn off the internet and I sit down and I look at the writing software, and I have to write something. That's the only way to get things done in terms of writing. Otherwise, procrastination will kill you. And I mean, we keep hearing people say like, writers write well when there's inspiration. Like, this is a very layman way of describing how people get into writing. But I would almost disagree, because professional writers write every single day, and they cannot be inspired every single day. It's discipline. So I would rather like write something that is bad because then you feel like you have kept the momentum up, and tomorrow you will write again. If today you take a break, it's very likely that tomorrow you'll take another break, and then this break will last for a very long time, and then you never get to write. That's why I say discipline is the most important thing. So I try to discipline myself to do my writing. I set goals. My current goal is to have a first draft, no matter good or bad, by the end of my quarantine. And the way I hold myself accountable to that is that I tell it to my boss. I say that because he knows, he's a very good friend of mine, and he knows this happened to my family, and I'm in quarantine right now in the hotel. And I tell him that, look, like, I'm gonna get a first draft of the script out by the end of the quarantine. It may not be good at all, but then there's gonna be something there. And he actually told me like, look, relax here, like just look after your dad, and we can everything else can wait. But I mean, I set goals for myself, and I try to hold myself accountable by telling another person the goal. And then all this space and all these trees, and there's a bunch of trees in front of me right now at the balcony, next to my balcony, I think has given me a lot of space in my mind to think about how. So the story that I'm writing is about an Indian Singaporean girl who runs away from an arranged marriage to go to America to pursue her dream of ballet dance. I'm not an Indian Singaporean girl, and I didn't do ballet, but there's a lot of similarities in my own story with this character's story. So this story is based on a true an actual life story of a friend of mine, and she didn't do ballet either, but then she did run away from an arranged marriage. I didn't run away from arranged marriage, but then I started to find the similarities when I'm looking at her story more deeply, with all this quiet and with all this space that I have, and compare it with what I feel. Because this girl, this lady, she's around my age. She's Indian Singaporean. So we grew up in the same era of Singapore in the late 90s and in the early 2000s. And she ends up in America, and I end up in America too. So there's a similarity there. So the biggest similarity when I searched deeper was how the generation above me, above us, me and her, our father and mother, our parents' generation, how traditional they are compared with us. So her dad, like my dad, all they wanted was for us to get a stable job, get married, have kids, and be stable. So because they never had the chance for stability like we do now. So it's very hard for them to understand why do you need to leave the country and pursue your so-called dream when I was struggling to just feed the family when I was a young man, in terms of what my father would think. So that's something really similar between what she experienced and what I experienced, and I try to put that into the story as much as I can. And then the part about her going to America, she goes to America essentially to run away from, as part of running away from the marriage. But then in the film story, you cannot have running away from something, but you need the character, instead you need the lead character to be pursuing something. So running away, so in a typical film hero's journey, the protagonist would be actively chasing a meaningful goal. And in order for him or her to do that, he or she has to overcome a flaw that they have. So by overcoming the flaw, by chasing the goal and eventually achieving it, the character would have overcome the flaw, the personality flaw, or the flaw that he or she has in her, and therefore would have grown throughout the story. And that would be a good story for a movie. And it has to end in 2 hours, because that's the structure of a film story. And in real life, she wasn't pursuing anything per se by going to America. So we had to give the character a goal. And because it's film, I prefer for the goal to be more visually interesting. After doing much research, I find that there hasn't been, and I think today still, there is no Indian film, even coming from Bollywood or India, that was about ballet. There's a new film called Ye Ballet that's on Netflix. That's about 2 boys from the slums of India that eventually became great ballet dancers. But an Indian girl, probably dark skinned, in a ballet costume and ballet suit doing ballet is still something that we haven't seen on cinema. So we decided that that's where we're going. So that's the goal for the protagonist. And although I didn't do ballet, but the common thing that I have with the character is that I went to America to pursue an unconventional dream, especially in the eyes of my father, as did she, the character in the story. So I started to find all these connections with my own story when I had the peace and the quiet that I have now. And it's really helped me like progress with first finishing the outline on day 1 when I was here, and then now I'm moving on to the script. Yeah,
it's fantastic. So you're kind of paralleling your lives in terms of the storytelling, foregrounding her story, obviously, and the fictional story, of course, is foregrounded, but your own emotions and experiences are tied in. It's interesting the way you talk about the structuring of the film. I suppose maybe I'm saying something that everybody knows, but I guess screenwriting in particular, the narrative is always working towards the future, isn't it? It uses the past generously again and again, it inhibits. And the present, obviously, is the blockage. But it's always moving towards the future, isn't it? The future goal is either a happy ending or death or something. I mean, all drama works in this way. But film always seems to really be looking towards the future. And that's where the hope lies, I suppose, in the narrative, isn't it? Yeah, it's fascinating. It's a kind of simple in a way when you think about it. Hard to pull off, I know, but in a way, it's something that kind of keeps you moving because it's always moving forwards, isn't it? Narrative,
Yep. So I guess like in a typical Hollywood kind of, they call it like a Hollywood 3-act structure. That would be what it is. They call it the hero's journey as well. And in my opinion, I mean, if a student is listening to this and he or she wants to be a filmmaker and hasn't made a film yet, my advice, as looking back, like I tried, because one of my favorite directors is Christopher Nolan, and he's an expert, and I like Inarritu as well, Alejandro Inarritu, who did Birdman, who did 21 Grams, who won the Oscar for Revenant and Birdman. But before Birdman, his films were very much non-linear, and as was Nolan's films, and his films are still pretty much non-linear. I really like, as an audience, as a fan, I really liked that kind of movies. So I tried to emulate them very early on with my first and second films. And looking back, if I saw myself doing it, like now, I would actually say, like, try not to do that. try to go the more conventional way because he's Christopher Nolan and he's Inarritu and I'm nobody. So nobody would, people are not as patient or as accepting towards something unconventional from somebody new. So you have, as a young filmmaker, as a new filmmaker, your responsibility is to make your film actually more accessible to the audience, to encourage them to watch it more. And you may have a vision of how you eventually want your filmmaking style to be like, and gradually you can evolve to become that as you make more and more films. That's what I think. So I think like, especially when filmmakers are starting out, they probably have to write their own scripts. And I mean, unless you're working with a great writer that's writing your script, or at least a good writer, otherwise, as a very young filmmaker or a new filmmaker, nobody's going to give you the time of your day by handing you a script for you to direct. I don't think so. So then you have to write, and writing is one of the greatest. If you want to be a director, I think two skills are really useful to pick up, and one is writing, and the other is editing, because this will help you. This will help you in your directing as well.
It's the triumvirate, isn't it? It's the writing, it's the directing, it's the editing. If you're a genius for marketing, then
you're
and selling, that helps too, doesn't it?
Yeah. So in terms of writing, I would say the typical 3-act structure is a good way to follow, and there are many books out there that describe pretty much the same kind of the same rules in terms of writing a script according to the typical Hollywood 3-act structure. And those are good rules to follow if a filmmaker is just starting out, because audiences are trained to watch a film in that structure, whether they know it or not, because all of us have watched Hollywood films probably growing up, and Hollywood films are a lot about that hero's journey. Yeah, it's a safe bet, and it's a good safe bet. It's not like being old-fashioned or old school, but I think it's only after you master the structure that you can break it. So I would say, like, for young filmmakers, don't try to be too fancy before you actually know the structure really well.
Yeah. Very good. Are you working in television? You mentioned series. Are you working, is his son working in television production as well?
We are only starting to go into television production. And when we say television, we mean streaming. So we don't mean the traditional television. Yeah, we mean like that.
Yeah.
So series, we call it series,
Yeah. Can you tell at this stage what's happening in the Asian part of the industry? Obviously, China's been closed down longer than other parts of the world. Do you get any sense that the market is starting to come back to some sort of life? Do you get any sense of what's happening in that world yet, or is it too early for you to really assess it?
I think it's too early to tell, because if I'm not wrong, the cinemas in China are still closed. I know that for a week, sometime maybe 2 months ago, they tried to reopen, and then they very quickly closed again. And in Hong Kong, I think they are slowly reopening, but I wouldn't be too optimistic about the turnout in terms of audience going to cinemas to watch movies for maybe the rest of the year. That's what I think. I think the cinemas would only really come back early as next year. Yeah. Even 3 months ago, I was saying that the cinemas would only come back next year, and now I feel even more certain that they will only come back next year. And productions are still not happening. I don't think they have restarted productions, because I feel like for a lot of governments, like, their goal is to just avoid crowds, like people crowding around. And productions is crowds, because there are hundreds of people working on set, and if you are working on an interior scene, like, there are a lot of people in the room, and that's the worst thing to have happen right now during these times of COVID. So I don't think things will restart anytime soon. That's just my personal opinion, but who knows? Things are changing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the thing one worries about, is that army you talk about. I mean, every time we see a film now, we know that at least it takes at least 15 minutes for the credits to roll at the end, and everybody below director and writer and even cast then becomes really part of that whole enormous army of production
Yes.
people, in-house and out of house,
Yes.
who really have no hope of working
Right. Right. That's
until things get back on. There's nothing else they can do. They can
no.
collect unemployment or some kind of insurance or something.
Yeah.
So it's a real dilemma. It's a real
It is.
dilemma. But
Yeah.
yeah. But any final words for, say, students who are going to be caught in this dilemma? Should, parents nowadays are probably looking at the arts as maybe not something to go into, but then again, maybe investment banking isn't good to go into at this point either. So I'm just wondering, because I don't think a creative life should be governed by a commercial endpoint.
Right. Right. For the students, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I recently, now I'm thinking about an article that actually just came out this week that was published by the Singapore Global Network, which is a government and Singapore government entity. They interviewed me a couple of weeks ago about just my work in Hollywood, and in the article I was saying that like to make it in this industry, you have to give it your all. You really have to do it like your life depends on it. And in order to do that, like you really have to love what you're doing. That's what I think. And I mean, a couple of weeks ago, like I messaged you because I found out that Gary Oldman was an alumni of Rose Bruford. I never knew. I should have known, but I never knew. I'm ashamed.
Just so everyone knows who's hearing this, Rose Bruford is a college I used to run in the UK. And Gary Oldman preceded me. I didn't teach him, obviously. Maybe he and I might be even the same age. So, but yeah, he was. Yeah, that's right.
And I went to Rose Bruford, but you weren't my principal. You were principal maybe 5-6 years after I graduated. So we have the Rose Bruford connection, and as does Gary Oldman. And I looked at the interview that he did at the Rose Theatre, which brought back a lot of memories for me, like performing there, and rehearsing there, and doing workshops there. And he said that, and it blew my mind when I heard him say. He says that you have to give it your very best, because your second best and your worst is only a small margin apart. And I thought, oh my God, like that is so true. Because if you're not ready to give it your very best, and that involves a lot of sacrifice. Like today, I'm 42 years old. And especially when I'm in Singapore, like my dearest friends in Singapore are people that I grew up with. I've known them since we were teenagers, young teenagers, like 11, 12 years old. And I mean, bless them, they have been sending me food every single day because they are worried that I'm not used to the hotel food. They're like my family, But our lives are so different now because of the path that I took and the path that they took are very different. And when I compare myself with them in a certain way, I can see very clearly what sacrifices I have made to pursue the path that I wanted to take. And I feel like it takes a degree of insanity to do that, because I remember when I was in my 20s, it drove me insane to think that I'm going to be any less than the best version of myself. It drove me insane. And this insanity is what drove me to go to these different countries to pursue my career, and eventually end up in my opinion, the biggest film platform in the world, environment in the world, which is Los Angeles. And I sacrificed a lot of things along the way, and but like life is only hard when it lacks meaning and purpose. So despite what I do not have today, in terms of maybe the stability or the material comforts that maybe some of my friends do have here in Singapore, I find that the life that I'm leading is very meaningful and purposeful for myself, and that's the most important thing for me. So I would say, like do this if that's what you really want to do, and give it your all, and you will find your path. You will find your path.
Brilliant. Maybe that's a good place to end this recording.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Why don't you shut that off? We'll see what we have.